So the CDC say that they have changed the definition of a vaccine to prevent misinterpretations and increase transparency. The AP did a fact check on the situation when people stated the obvious that the move was pretty fishy. The AP shut down dissenters on social media and published this headline: "Experts say change to CDC's vaccination definition are normal." Right. The definition of vaccination changed from the act of introducing a vaccine that provides immunity to a vaccine that produces protection. And we'll go over those definitions a little bit more in depth. But a spokesperson for the CDC said the previous definition could be interpreted to mean vaccines are 100% effective. This has never been the case for any vaccine, they say. So it looks like the CDC's language change may be in line with what vaccine makers' expectations are. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky said during a press briefing, quote, "What we're really working to do is pivot the language to make sure everyone is up to date with their COVID-19 vaccines as they personally could be, should be, based on when they got their last vaccine." So they say, well, we changed the definition just to make sure that everybody would be up to date. You know, this is what a vaccine is. Now, when I was growing up, I always believed, and I'm sure you did too, that a vaccine meant you were not going to get the disease. If you got a vaccine against measles, you were not going to get the measles. If you got a vaccine against rubella, you weren't going to get that. Or if you got the polio vaccine, you sure as hell weren't going to get polio. That was the idea that all of us had when we were thinking of what a vaccine was. Now, of course, no vaccine is 100% effective. And we've heard this thrown out, that phrase, that exact phrase over and over and over again has been thrown at us, right? Like, of course, no vaccine is 100%. But that meant to all of us, that's always meant that it's an extremely, extremely rare case where if you got the measles vaccine, you would still end up with measles. It was almost unheard of. It was very rare. So is the vaccine 100%? No, there are some very rare breakthrough cases, but they're extremely rare. I don't personally know anyone who got the measles vaccine and still ended up with measles. Maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe I do, actually. It seems like an odd conversation. I don't know if anybody's ever, I don't think I've ever had the conversation, quite honestly. I had measles, so I don't even know if I got the measles vaccine because I know that if you've already had the disease, they don't give you the vaccine. So I might not have been vaccinated against the measles because I had them. But anyway, it's extremely rare, right? That's what we always thought a vaccine would be. Now, they changed that definition. Let's go over some of these definitions because this isn't they've made a change before. This isn't the last or the only change they've made. Here is this one here. This is pre-2015. A vaccine was injection of a killed or weakened infectious organism in order to prevent the disease, right? That's what we all thought a vaccine was, like I just described. It's if you get the measles or polio or smallpox vaccine, you were not likely, you really just thought, I'm not going to get the disease. If you did, it would be like they'd write it up in medical journals, right? Okay, so then in 2015, they changed the definition of vaccination and they changed it to the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. Now, I'm not sure why would they change it to that? Let's read that again. Let's try to make sense of this. The act. So before it was the injection of a killed or weakened infectious organism in order to prevent the disease. And then it was the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. Okay, so what I take from that is they changed the technology of vaccines. So rather than taking the weakened or killed virus itself, and then injecting that into you like they did with smallpox and polio, rather than do it that way, they must have changed the mechanism, maybe because of flu vaccine. I'm trying to think of what vaccine came out around 2015 or maybe even a little earlier than that would cause them to change the definition so that it would then become, well, you're not necessarily getting the virus itself. It must have been because there's several different types of vaccines. So we know you've got the traditional vaccine, which is actually putting a live sample of a weakened version of the actual virus into your system. That was how smallpox was done. And then they figured out they could actually kill the virus, but the body so it wouldn't be active in your system alive. They could then inject the dead virus into you and your body would still recognize it as foreign and produce immunity to it. But then they came out with different vaccines. Maybe this has to do with like Ebola because now Johnson and Johnson has the only vaccine for Ebola, and it's basically what they're doing now with their COVID vaccine, where they take a different virus that is not the actual virus, and then they inject it with a code that tells your cells then to make that portion just a piece of the virus, and then your body would recognize that piece of the virus, and if it ever came into contact with the actual virus that would have that piece, it would then fight, develop a bunch of antibodies and fight it off. So the other difference is, maybe I'd have to do a little bit, I'm not a scientist on this, so I only know, as much as I know. But when you got an injection of the live virus, I would imagine then when you came into contact with the virus, you still caught it, but your body just fought it off so fast that you never got sick, but you still were infected with it. Now, when they switched their technology and they moved to this, to these other types of, protein subunit, which is again taking just a piece of the virus rather than the whole or the a whole killed or whole dead virus, when they just take a piece of it. I wonder if that made it to where you'd be more likely to get infected. But when you got infected, I wonder what the difference is on the fighting off the virus. Like, how infected? Did you get more infected when they used protein subunit or these adenovector viruses, which is what I was talking about with adenovector vaccines, like what Johnson and Johnson used for Ebola? Does one fight off the virus faster than another? Not sure about that, but they seem to have changed the definition because, one, they changed the technology of vaccination, and two, rather than saying it prevents the virus, they're saying, well, no, it gives you immunity. Maybe it was always the case when they gave you, measles and smallpox and polio. Maybe it was always the case that it didn't prevent the virus, but it gave you immunity, which is almost interchangeable. I mean, what do you care if, you caught the measles, but you never really developed measles, or you never even knew you got measles? I don't know if you notice. I mean, I wouldn't notice the difference between the measles because I can't see the measles, right? So the virus comes up to me, and when it gets to me, it says, "Oh, I'm repelled. I can't infect this person. She has a vaccine that prevents my infection," versus the virus coming into contact with me and saying, I can jump in there, and then it goes into my system and then says, "Oh, I'm being met by an army of antibodies, so this person's now immune." It doesn't, you as the average person, wouldn't know the difference, right? So I don't know if people really cared or paid too much attention to that. Then again, maybe people that were really, really heavily into the vaccine world, maybe they were causing a stink about that. Now, the final definition that they changed it to was the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce protection from a specific disease. So it went from the act of introducing a vaccine into the body, so that's all the same between the 2015 definition and today's definition, to produce, it's all the same, immunity in the 2015, and now in 2021 changed from immunity to protection. So immunity to a specific disease, and now it's been switched to protection from a specific disease. Protection from a disease versus the immunity to the specific disease. And they say that they did this to increase transparency and to prevent misinformation, or prevent people from being confused. They're trying to clarify. I don't feel like I don't have any more clarity on this. Actually, the very first definition is the most clear. Right, there it is. Injection of a killed or weakened infectious organism in order to prevent the disease. That's the most clear. That's as clear as it gets. I understand that. That's what we've always thought a vaccine was. So the new definitions are not really helping. It is extremely suspect. And now it's, we're putting this into your system to give you protection from the disease. And therefore, you're going to need it, over and over again, but you're still going to get the disease. So that's what this protection is. But then I'm like, how good of protection is it if you're still going to get it? It's like saying, here's some protection for you to have safe sex and for you to prevent pregnancy, but you're still going to get an STD and you're still going to get pregnant. But this is going to provide you some protection. I mean, but then again, right, not 100%. So I guess if it's slightly more protective, if it gives you 10%, is that something they could call a vaccine? because, well, that's some protection. If it's 20%, 30%, how much protection does it have to give us in order for it to be called protection and in order for it to be then classified as a vaccine? I think that's what the big... Now, the issue with that is I'm fine if they want to change the definitions and say, well, okay, a vaccine really could just be the injection of something rather than taking an oral pill. It's an injection of something that's going to give you some protection from a disease. And that protection could be as low as 10%. I'm fine with that, actually. The issue with it, however, and where it becomes not okay, is the fact that the implication or the understanding, the common language of vaccine has always meant you get it. You're not going to, if you get the vaccine, you're not then going to develop the disease and you're not going to spread the disease to other people. That is why we have in this country vaccine mandates for children going to schools. So if they then change the definition to just, oh yeah, this is going to give you protection for like maybe 10% protection, then suddenly, nitwits on the school board think, well, it's a vaccine and we do mandate vaccines for kids. And so we got to mandate this vaccine, even though it offers very little protection, but it doesn't matter. It's a vaccine, and vaccines, we all know what vaccines do. And you say, well, what do they do? And they say, you're not allowed to spread the disease to other people. So you need to get this vaccine because you're not allowed to spread it. And you say, well, but that's not what these vaccines do, because they changed the definition of vaccines and they put their fingers in their ears and they don't listen to us. And that is what we've all experienced throughout this pandemic, which has been extremely frustrating. So I wish that the CDC would get the word out a little bit more that they've changed the definition. I wish they would be more transparent about the fact that they changed the definition so that people stop believing that a vaccine is meant to do what this first, what we all thought, because many of us were raised before 2015, all of us pretty much, injection of a killed or weakened infectious organism in order to prevent the disease. That's what we all understood vaccines to be. That's how people are operating in today's world in this pandemic, that they're operating on that first definition. So, all right. Thanks for joining the show. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss a video. I say that all the time on Rising, so here I am saying it on my own channel, right? It's like, but how many ways can you say, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss any of my videos? I mean, I feel like there's only one way to say it. All right. Thanks for watching. See you soon.